Hello, Alabama fans. It's Tim Watts who's hosting today with said I had a little audio problem, so we're hosting with our airplane got us in headphones. We're here with Andrew Bone, senior recruiting analyst, team guy, dipping his foot in the team stuff this year with Jimmy Stein, who's a team guy that dips his foot in the recruiting stuff. So you're getting a little bit of everything today. Um, we appreciate y'all for being here. We're going to talk about spring practice, the scrimmage tomorrow, what we've seen so far, recruiting, a lot of discussion. AK Deer finally set a date. Woo! AK Deer, one of the top running backs in the country. I think he's second overall in the industry ranking. So we're going to be talking about all that. But do us a favor first. If you get a chance, please like and subscribe. We're almost at that 10,000 mark. And for you guys that started with us and gals, started with us when we were at the 1,000 mark. We appreciate you. That's the goal we've been shooting for. So just give us a thumbs up, like and subscribe, and we'll continue this content. A couple BOL announcements. Travis Ryder, who hosted the show with us, my partner in cargoes, has retired, somewhat semi-retired. Travis is living the good life, wanting to spend more time with his family. Um, he announced it on the roundtable, the BOL message board. So I don't think all the YouTubers got it, but you guys that aren't reading the message board, that's one thing you missed. Joining the roundtable in BamaOnLine. And we also have a new exciting hire. Blake Bliner has joined us. He's going to be teaming up with Charlie Potter, Jimmy Stein, doing some team stuff. Again, Andrew Bone dips his toes in team. So do I. And then, of course, Joseph Hastings rounds out the team. So, guys, headsets on. Welcome to the show, Andrew, Jimmy.
Glad to be here.
It's
Starting
Friday.
up soon.
Friday,
That's
man.
right.
Gotta love Friday. Of course, some people got to work on Fridays and Saturdays, and over the weekend. So a lot going on in T-Town over the next few days.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you guys, another scrimmage is coming up. Let's talk a little bit about recruiting before we get into all that. So, we've finally got AK Deer. That's where I think we need to start. We need to start with AK Deer, who we've been expecting possibly to join the Alabama class for 2 months. Has it been? Seems that long at least. Kind of got caught in that flurry of commitment runs that started with Keeline Russell, the five-star quarterback from Texas, and then went all the way up to Ty Haywood, Caleb Cunningham, who went back to back. So 3 5-stars started the class, and it started the run and ended the run. So we've been waiting on AK. Andrew, give us some thoughts on where we stand right now heading into that.
Yeah, I think everybody's been waiting on this one for a while as far as the announcement, the decision date, and he's going to be announcing on Tuesday, August 20th. Everybody was thinking he was going to announce on July the 4th. Everybody on social media thought this was going to happen, the day after he decommitted from Ole Miss, which was, I think it was the 28th. And we made a prediction back on, I think you posted on BOL on June the 25th, a prediction for AK Deer to Alabama. So that's over almost a month and a half ago now. So everybody was kind of wondering, when's this going to happen? When's this going to happen? Well, finally we got that date, August 20th. He's got a top 3, Alabama, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. Only took one visit in the month of July. Was back in Tuscaloosa for the Champions Cookout on July the 28th. And there was some talk that maybe he decides to stretch it out into the season, take some more visits. But he's ready to shut it down. I don't know if we need to say shut it down because business can still happen during the fall, but he's at least ready to announce that next decision. And I think Alabama is sitting in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I think one of the good things about this is we have a date. You have a date that he's going to announce on the 20th. And every time Hayes Fawcett, our own on threes, Hayes Fawcett had a big news coming, everybody said AK, AK, AK. So last night, finally, Hayes said big news coming, and we knew it wasn't AK for the first time. So, Jimmy, give us some thoughts on what you think about AK Deer, prospect, what he brings to the class, and, just touch on everything.
Oh, every reason to be really excited about him. The first thing that stands out to me about AK is just his size. Alabama's first 3 running backs right now on the depth chart is very similar backs. Justice Haynes, Jam Miller, and Richard Young are all very similar in terms of how they're built and their size and their ability to run inside and out. AK Deer is going to show up a bigger guy than they did when they showed up. I mean, this is more of a power back, but at the same time, so you're thinking power back, right? Then you watch the tape and this kid's hitting home run after home run. I mean, he scores a lot he can score from your 20. He can score from his own 20. I mean, he can really run in the open field. I think it's hard to come up with a Bama comp, frankly, because he's so uniquely built, showing up probably in the 215, 218 range. But man, big time talent. Like Tim said, ranked second in the on-3 industry. Alabama getting another top target. That's what I'm most impressed by DeBoer and his staff. I mean, they getting one of their top targets as highly recruited as AK Deer is. I know he's mostly considered local programs, but this is a guy that could have signed with programs on either side of the continent. So major get, a great fit because he's a little different than what they've got right now at the top of the depth chart. And every reason to be excited about the way Kalen DeBoer and the staff recruits.
Yeah, the one thing about it too is also and I know Anthony Rogers, and we'll get into him in a minute, Turbo and his recruitment, get some discussions on him. But this is like the final piece to some degree. It's the one piece that Kalen DeBoer has not committed yet, was the running back position. And again, if you lay out the offensive guys they've got committed, you can find an impact guy, including tight end, running back, quarterback, interior lineman, a tackle, every single position, wide receiver. You can find an impact guy. And I think that's kind of what you're looking for. I think it's more in the day of the portal. I think we're looking more for quality than quantity. I think you can get your numbers up in the portal all day long. There's going to be good players that slip through the cracks that go to the smaller schools and then end up at the bigger schools. So I think you do all that. That's going to be the biggest thing. Now, he's from Mississippi. I think people go back to the 2000, 2005 years, and we remember some of the recruitments there. I mean, you do a quick glance about Alabama and what they've had success just in the last few years. They did fairly well in Mississippi, Andrew.
Yeah, they have. I mean, we've seen a lot of great recruiting battles, and I mentioned this on the BOL roundtable the other day. I said, just because it seems like it's so difficult to recruit in the state of Mississippi, which it is, Alabama doesn't recruit 10 plus guys in Mississippi every year. A lot of schools don't. They recruit kind of the top end guys, 2 or 3 guys every single recruiting cycle, and it's usually the top 2 or 3 guys in the state. So a lot of times it's very hard to get those kids out of the state. But Alabama's done really well through the years. We've seen a lot of great talent. We're going to see a great talent on the defensive side of the ball this year from the state of Mississippi, and Jaheim Otis on the defensive front. So they've recruited Mississippi well. Went in there the last couple of years, signed some great players, including Daniel Hill out of Meridian last year, Bray Hubbard out of Ocean Springs a couple of years ago. So they've done well. I think they're going to continue to do well. And obviously this year's class with London Simmons, Caleb Cunningham, potentially AK Deer on Tuesday. That's 3 top guys that that they went after, that they really pushed hard for, and could potentially get on board. But as you mentioned, it's the state of Mississippi. They're going to be top guys for those Mississippi schools all the way until signing day. So they're going to be heavily recruited all the way until then. So if you're Alabama, you get AK Deer on Tuesday, great, but you better recruit them all the way until the finish line.
Yeah, and another thing that factors in, I know we're focusing on Mississippi, but that's the case like with every position. You think nobody wants Justin Hill or Dijon Lee or Keelan Russell? You think their phones are going, no text, no phone calls? They're pretty popular guys too. We just don't hear as much about it because of that Mississippi mystique. And hey, in the past, I think there were situations where we knew stuff that, the public probably didn't know yet, or we suspected stuff. I think it's a little bit different now. And all these guys, Alabama's got the number 2 class in the country, could easily be ranked the number 1 class in the country. And I would say the majority of those guys are getting hit up by schools constantly. Jimmy?
Oh, there's no question. I mean, and like you said, regardless of where you're from, where they're from, getting the top guys at that position is huge. I don't care if they're from Australia or California or Alabama or Mississippi. But I'm terrible with math, but from what I've heard, is AK Deer commits to Alabama, that might push Alabama to number 1. I can't do the math to tell people this, but I've heard that or read that adding AK Deer pushes Alabama to number 1. I was really optimistic about how well this staff would recruit, just coming in behind the Saban staff with all that Saban had built. I was very optimistic, but I don't know if at any point I felt like, okay, well, they're probably going to continue to sign number 1 classes, no different than Nick Saban did. It's just pretty amazing when you add an AK Deer, it takes landing kids with him and his ranking to be number 1, and then all these kids from out of state that Tim's talking about.
Yeah, our residential mathematician, Joseph Hastings, is somewhere in capri pants and $5 flip-flops from the local store, I think. speaking Italian and eating as much pizza as he can. But I believe it would put Alabama number one. I'm not doing the math, but I know they were number one when they had Antonio Coleman, lost Antonio Coleman, and they went to number two in the rankings. And AK's ranked higher than Antonio was. So I think that would. Now there's been a lot of ranking changes, but either way, it's a really good class. Let's move on to another Mississippi guy everybody talks about, Caleb Cunningham. There's the boogie, the boogeyman. A little bit there too. I mean, the surprise to me is the reaction to Ole Miss is still recruiting him. I mean, Ole Miss and Auburn and every school, if they're not recruiting him, they're insane, right? That's their job. He's a extreme talent. I don't think the story is that other schools are recruiting Caleb. I think it would be surprising if they weren't. Andrew?
And this is a 5-star wide receiver, number 2 wide receiver in the country. You're going to be pursued heavily, especially by the in-state schools, all the way until the finish line. And and we know some other schools are still, actively involved, including Auburn. And I wouldn't be surprised if he takes some visits this season. I mean, why not? Why not go to a free big game at at an incredible environment? And he's going to be in Tuscaloosa plenty this season, but we can expect that he's going to bounce around, see some good games. But he's continued to say that his commitment to Alabama is very solid. Told Joseph the other night, 100%. Saw the report out there about Ole Miss, being heavily involved. Mississippi State still heavily involved, but he says he's locked in with that decision. We saw late last month in July, he was scheduled to visit Auburn for the Big Cat weekend. Didn't end up going over there. Did go to the in-state schools, though, so saw Ole Miss and Mississippi State. But, as of right now, he's still pretty solid with Alabama. I think, the biggest thing with a lot of these guys that are committed right now, they want to see Alabama this season, though. They spent the entire offseason learning about the coaches, learning about, what the program is going to look like after Nick Saban, outside of the field, and they're excited. They're pumped. They're eager about the future, but they still want to see the performance on the field this fall. So there's going to be a lot of attention, a lot of eyes on what Coach Kalen DeBoer, this staff's able to do, the production, the receiver room, all that good stuff. So how they perform on the field this fall is certainly going to be a major impact. Maybe not in 25 as much, but certainly 26, 27, and beyond.
Yeah, Caleb didn't go to the Big Cat weekend, but he went to every other weekend. He went to Mississippi State, he went to Ole Miss, and he went to Alabama. So obviously a guy that's going to enjoy the process. And, I think Bama fan, the thing about it is kids that don't openly visit and tape visits, they still flip. They flip on signing day. We saw that with JoJo Earl, for instance, Keanu Cote. We saw guys like that flip. So guys taking visits. Ryan Williams took visits.
Jaden Roberts.
Jaden, yeah, absolutely. So I think the biggest concern is taking visits and not letting the staff know. That's always a warning sign. We saw that with Perry Thomas. We saw that with Derek Smith. I think that's kind of the warning signs you get from the Alabama perspective. But after that, you're just kind of, I know they look like grown men, but they're still 17, 18-year-old kids doing a lot of the stuff that we would do if we could. Jimmy, you got thoughts?
Well, I would say that if you're the Alabama fan that has a difficult time sleeping because the 5-star that's committed may sign somewhere else. The alternative is signing kids that no one wants. You could raid a Sunbelt school's commitment list and feel good that they're actually going to sign with Alabama in December. But no, if you want to recruit with the big boys, this is what it takes. You got to recruit and sign players that everyone else wants and won't quit recruiting until ink hits the paper or the email is sent or however they do it now. So Caleb Cunningham is going to be pursued until recruiting for his class stops. And then the day after that, then there will be worries that he will enter the transfer portal. So welcome to 2024.
Yeah, and for the fan, in a lot of this, I know on the message board, the BOL roundtable, there's a lot of discussion about people that are negative or they're trolls. Everybody watching this show has somebody in their life who's negative, whose glass is half full. I know a lot of people who didn't even get a glass. They're just mad they didn't even get a glass. So that's just human nature. There's a lot going into this, and we've all did it so long. We're all 20 years covering recruiting, following recruiting, knowing what's. I haven't aged into 20 years. These two guys, whoo! But we see the human nature take over where there's no way you're getting this guy, and it kind of lessens the blow to him. And then there's the guys going, we're getting them no matter what. And if they don't get them, they say, hey, it'll all work out. You'll get somebody else. So I think that's just just par for the course. Let's go to a little bit. All right, we've got senior years coming up, which I'm excited about. More as much as ever, I'm excited about this because we got a brand new staff. We get to see what they're looking for, a chance for guys to emerge. Each of you guys pick out a guy on the commitment list and tell me why he could go up and a reason you think that that opportunity is there for him as far as the commitments, ranking, stock, and so on. Andrew?
Yeah, I'll probably take your guy, Tim, somebody that you like a lot. That's probably London Simmons, Mississippi kid at a Hartfield Academy. And he plays at a small school, so I don't know how much attention he's going to be able to garner. But this is a kid who lost, I think, 40 pounds during the off season, had a great junior season, but he was a lot bigger. I'm interested to see kind of what his stats are going to look like this upcoming season because I think he had over 15 sacks last year at 350. I think he said 340, but he probably most of the time when kids are saying they're 340, they're usually about 360. So he could have been a little bit bigger, maybe not, but he's lost a lot of weight. Alabama staff absolutely loved him when they went out and saw him during the spring. Really started to push hard for him after seeing his weight loss, and then he came to camp and just absolutely kicked ass out there. So I think Alabama's really excited about London Simmons. Made him one of their top defensive line targets, and I think that he's going to have a chance to really move up. So really excited to see what he's going to be able to do this season. He's one of the few 3-stars in Alabama's class right now.
He looked big and athletic at 340, 350 to me. I know he's not playing the highest level competition, but I mean, small things sell you on the big guys. Remember Jaheim Otis kicking off? I mean, when you see the smallest thing can kind of like wake you up. Jackson Lloyd. I think people are as impressed with his basketball dunks as they are with his football film. It shows his athleticism. Jimmy, who do you have?
Yeah, I like Bone's answer a lot. I mean, I think London is a guy that can make a big rise, particularly if he gets to play, postseason All-Star. Even if it's just the Alabama Mississippi High School All-Star game and he gets in front of the rankings guys, he could really rise. But the guy I'm going to harp on is, and partly shout out to On3 for being ahead of the curve on him. But Latsier Brooks, wide receiver from New Jersey, On3 had him ranked higher than the other services initially. I think now that he's gotten attention in part because of On3, and then of course his commitment to Alabama, he'll have more eyes on him this season at New Jersey, and that kid's a walking human highlight film. I mean, is there any doubt what his senior season highlight film is going to look like? Now, I think for him to have a real jump in the rankings might take him an invitation to one of these all-star games or some sort of platform beyond just playing his high school football season in New Jersey. But Latsier Brooks, I think, is near criminally underranked by the other services. I think, again, On3 was on him pretty early, but he's a guy that I think will rise in that industry ranking a lot because it's really the other services that need to catch up to where On3 is on Latsier.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing that when you see a new staff, and this is what reminded me of Nick Saban when he first got here is that Latsier Brooks, when I saw his film when the offer went out, and I saw he's a 3-star, I was ranting and raving. I said, there's no friggin' way this guy's a 3-star. Keelan Russell was another. So their evaluations are their evaluations. They feel comfortable with them. They're going in at them. A guy I'm going to choose is one that Jimmy's been talking about since he was 11 years old, is Micah DeBoer. I think DeBoer is that guy that started top 20, top 30, top 40 in the country, had some weight on him this summer at a camp or two, and they kind of look. Big guys get big when they're not playing football. I remember the talk of Deron Payne. Y'all might remember that. He was fat. He was heavy. He couldn't play. He couldn't. Not in May. Not in May. But you know what happened in September? He absolutely played. He blew up. You get to college, you have better work habits. I mean, we've seen that with several guys who've changed their body. They eat, but they still eat, but they eat better. They work out better. They're busier. Because when you're a big-time football player in the South, you're kind of spoiled. Those big guys sleep a lot. I remember Dominique Lee, I asked a college coach, I said, I think he's kind of lazy. He said, no, let him sleep. The Lions sleep. That's what he told me. That's what he told me. He's kind of right. The big boys are just going to sleep. So I'll go with Micah. I think he's a football player. I don't think he has the ideal body for what you're looking for naturally out of the rankings. But you know who had the contrast from body to skill set? The biggest ones ever has been Andre Smith, right? I mean, a guy that, out of football pads is just as normal as he could get, but in football pads, just at another level his entire career all the way going through. an NFL career. But I agree with you guys. There's guys that can go up. There's guys that have a chance to move up. And this senior year is important to
And then,
find.
the thing about rankings for not just On Three, but all the different sites. So if you look at On Three, and then you look at another site and see a kid is not anywhere close to the On Three rankings, or vice versa, a lot of it's just being seen. Some national analysts want to see these guys in person before they move them up. And so you think back to a guy like Jackson Lloyd, who is ranked very high at On Three. Ranked, I think he's 26 overall in the country. But other sites, I think the highest he's ranked other sites, is outside the top 100 because he plays basketball and baseball. He didn't go to any camps at all. He did not get seen. So you don't get seen at any camps. You're not going to move up. But, for people like Charles Power, who does a great job evaluating, he spends so much time watching film and looking at that athletic profile. So when he looks at Jackson Lloyd and sees his measurements, sees his highlight reels on the basketball court, sees him hitting home runs and doing inside the park home runs on the baseball diamond, he can see the talent that's there at 6'7", 295 pounds. He didn't have to go see Jackson Lloyd work out in person, whereas a lot of people do want to see them work out in person before they move them up in the rankings.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Opportunity. When I was running Rivals Hoops back in the day, opportunity is everything. You go to a small tournament. I went to a small tournament in Georgia. I can't even remember where it was. And it just so happened Dwight Howard was there. Josh Smith was there. Randolph Morris. I mean, it was just loaded. They were just killing the local high school team, of course. But I had a chance to see them probably before they got out national. Ranked Dwight Howard number one first. We had him ranked number one first. It wasn't that others didn't go, hey, this 6'11" guy that can literally fly is pretty good. It was just that I got out, saw him in the tournament a little bit earlier. So that's a good point. Opportunity is certainly going to play a factor in this. And also eyes are now on Latsier Brooks. There are people going, hey, I'm going to pay attention to him this year. Jackson Lloyd certainly has been moving up. Went from a 3-star, he's top 100 in the industry. So definitely gaining ground. All right, guys, we're going to switch to the team. We're going to let Jimmy start off here talking about the scrimmage last week, and we're just going to work our way into that and what we're expecting tomorrow in the scrimmage. Jimmy?
Well, one thing I hear is, DeBoer himself has said that there's going to be far fewer plays in the scrimmage tomorrow. There was 102 plays last Saturday. They're going to play even fewer plays. And I had someone expecting to attend the scrimmage tell me, that it might be less than an hour, or right at an hour. That's very, very short. I'm sure a lot of it has to do with injury concerns and health concerns. DeBoer and the rest of Alabama staff, they read the papers just like we do, and they see that Texas lost their top 2 running backs, A&M lost their running back, the Vikings lose their quarterback. So you get a little worried this late in camp, and Alabama's had some pretty good luck so far. A lot of bumps and bruises that are normally expected in fall camp. But I think the number one thing for me, guys, is that the scrimmage is going to be short. That's very newsworthy because that's not typical under what Saban did. And again, last week there was 102 plays. So a shorter scrimmage, probably dotting I's and crossing T's. I think a lot of the competition is over. They're not going to tell us just yet who are the winners at the right tackle and the cornerback opposite Damani. I think it's deciding who all is going to play, what's the snap share going to be, and those final decisions. Sometimes there's decisions made in these scrimmages, not so much about who's starting the games, but who's the last guys on the roster, who's making the travel squad for road SEC games. You're kind of deciding, okay, who's your top 70 guys, not just your starting 22. So those decisions have to be made as well. But I think the scrimmage on this Saturday is going to be just more important for dotting I's and crossing T's. I think a lot of the heavy lifting's been done because now you're into about day 15, day 16 of a 20-day camp.
Yeah, I think you also have a better feel of who you're working with. That's one thing I think the fans haven't adjusted to as well, is like spring football was a blind date. It was speed dating, right? They were going through everybody and where they were and what had happened since December, and guys getting to know everybody. Andrew, tell us a little bit of your thoughts on leading what you might expect from the first scrimmage to the second scrimmage.
Yeah, I think just continuing to get more reps, with some of these guys that are fighting for that, final top spot, whether that's at corner or right tackle, who's going to be, the guy coming off the bench, as Jimmy, noted at certain positions. There's just a lot is kind of riding on, these next couple practices, and who is going to be that big impact guy. I think wide receiver room is so interesting to me just because of the depth that's there. It's a lot of inexperience, but it's a lot of depth. And you see the talk from Nick Sheridan, Jamarcus Shepard, even Coach DeBoer. I mean, they are very excited about this group. And you got 2 freshmen in there that are really competing for playing time. I mean, you got some older guys in there that are potentially going to make an impact. Some guys that you kind of feel like are going to be the first 3 out there on the field. I think it's been mentioned plenty of times with Bernard and Kobe Prentice and Kendrick Law. But what about Cole Adams? What about Ryan Williams? What about Caleb Odom? I mean, it's a pretty stacked wide receiver group. I'm interested to kind of see how they continue to perform out on the field during the scrimmage going into next week. But man, I think this wide receiver room is certainly extremely talented, and we've seen the receivers that Coach DeBoer's had at Washington the last couple of years, and even though they had some really good talent, obviously at the top, I don't think it's certainly as deep as what he has here at Alabama. Is very talented, but is it as deep as what they've got here with all the guys that they're working with, especially these freshmen? I think when they saw these guys on the field, Caleb Odom, first time, you can imagine, wow, I've got this 6'5", 227-pound wide receiver that we can work with. And then you get Ryan Williams. Ryan Williams didn't even go through the spring. He gets here in the summer, starts working out with the team, and all of a sudden he's in line to get a lot of playing time.
Yeah, I think one of the things you have to respect with this staff is I'm not sure the 3 guys they had at Washington, first, second, and third round picks with Jeremy, those guys would have been right at the top of the depth chart here. But yeah. You're right. I think after Jeremy, I think it got thin. I think with Alabama, it's definitely deeper than 4 players, even after losing Isaiah Bond and those guys. So you have, again, our own Charlie Potter, and I'd be remiss if we didn't mention Mr. Potter because he would yell at me. But Charlie had a really good story about 5 hours ago that he dropped where he had 6 guys that he's watching for the scrimmage this week. Before we get into that, do us a favor. One last reminder, like and subscribe. Trying to get to that 10,000 mark. Andrew's got a funny thumb. I don't know what you did with that thumb. That thumb's not normal. But give us a like and subscribe. We appreciate you guys being here, you guys and gals. The females are well represented on BOL and the round table. And they do a great job. But yeah, Charlie had that top 6 here. He had Jahad Campbell, Wilcom Formby, Deshaun Jones, Jalen Milroe, Caleb Odom, and LT Overton. And I'm going to start a little bit on LT because the feedback I got last Sunday, it was just LT. Like the people I were talking about too, they just kept talking about LT. Had a good game. I think he had a couple sacks back-to-back against Proctor at one point. The funny thing to me about the scrimmage is talking about the scrimmage. It's the fans want Proctor to have 100 pancakes, but they want Overton to have 100 sacks. Unfortunately, for a Bama player to do something good, that means a Bama player probably did something not so good. But Overton definitely was caught my attention. I heard his name a lot. It's good to see because I think people, and we've been discussing this again on the roundtable, he was a number 1 player in the country at his position, and it really wasn't in doubt. When those rankings came out, this wasn't a huge projection. This guy was a monster, classified up, changed a little bit of things, got his NIL money, went to Texas A&M. They had him out of position. A lot of things were happening there, but a chance for the guy to stand up. And who are some of the guys on Charlie's list you guys are kind of paying close attention to?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that Charlie included Jalen Milroe because he's one of the more established players on the team, but I couldn't agree more that Jalen Milroe and his performance in these scrimmages is huge because how far this Alabama team goes is going to align with how quickly does Jalen Milroe feel comfortable in this new offense. I mean, Jalen Milroe spent all last year. We all saw him improve last year as the season went on, as he gained comfort in what they were doing last year. Now with Jalen, to some extent, it's starting over again. There's a whole new scheme, but Jalen himself in an interview this fall has said that, he sort of feels like it's built around him and what he does. And we've all, from attending practice and that open practice last Sunday, Jalen does look confident in this new offense, in this new scheme. And that's great news for Alabama fans because, again, how comfortable Jalen is with this new scheme and this new offense is probably going to tell the story for the entire 2024 season.
Yeah. Andrew, who you got? Andrew,
I
who
think
do you have?
Deshaun Jones. I think when Mo Linquist, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got
I
you.
think Mo Linquist came out and said this week that Deshaun Jones, his quote was, "We made contact." So that's very positive because we weren't really sure who was going to be, that corner on the opposite side of Damani Jackson. I don't think we're there just yet. I think there's still a competition kind of going there with Xavier Brown, Jalen Mbakwe, and Deshaun Jones. But you got a guy that transferred in from Wake Forest that has had a lot of meaningful snaps, and now he's starting to click. And he was a late transfer, so he comes in, finally gets his feet wet, and he's a guy that we feel like can come in and make a potentially a big impact in the secondary. And having some experience, having some playing experience, certainly very beneficial. And you might have two. You lost your top two corners in Kool-Aid and Terrion to the NFL, but you recruit guys from the transfer portal. You get these guys in, and they're itching to make a name for themselves as well. So it really intrigued to kind of see how Deshaun Jones continues to progress over these next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking forward to that secondary. Let's skip a little bit. Well, I almost skipped over this subject, but all these preseason rankings are coming out, right? Guys, you see, my first thought is I'm really happy to see Parker Brailsford and Booker get their fair share of credit. But I also think Jaden Roberts is going to be pissed. You know what I mean? Not that he doesn't think they're good, but Jaden's pretty good in his own right. He seems like a little bit of a self motivator. Haven't seen him even in the top 100. Maybe surprised me a little bit. But it is good to see Tyler and Parker get that recognition along with Moore. Andrew?
Yeah, no doubt. I don't think we were surprised at all to see Graham Nicholson on pretty much everyone's first team All-American list, preseason All-American list as the Lou Groza reigning Lou Groza Award
Yep.
winner. James Burnip also getting a lot of recognition, whether it's I've seen different lists that have had him first or second team punter. So your special teams are in pretty good shape heading into the season. Still kind of interested to see who are going to be those return guys. But I think we've seen several quotes about this being potentially the fastest team that Alabama's had in quite a few years. So really intrigued to see who they let return kicks this fall. But I think, as you mentioned, Jaden Roberts, he's certainly going to be one of those guys that I can see at the end of the season being in that first team conversation. Can Caden Proctor potentially be, this is going to be a great offensive line. So really intrigued to kind of see, what that unit's able to do. But just a great group overall. And, there's certainly some other guys that can make a big move at the end of the season, but we'll see what happens.
Jimmy, give me your scrimmage guy and a guy maybe time together that could end up, maybe not in the top 100 prospects or the rankings All-American teams, that could end up in that group.
Yeah, here's a guy that we don't talk nearly enough about, and that's Keon Sabb. I mean, Keon, who only started 5 games at Michigan, and I think was sort of unfairly portrayed in the spring as a replacement for Caleb Downs, and maybe some fans thought, oh, well, you lose Caleb, but you're bringing this. That was never fair to Keon, who had only started 5 games at Michigan last year in his year 2, unlike Caleb, who was a consensus first-team freshman All-American. But Keon showed up at Alabama in the spring, guys, and he was a first-team player on this defense day one, and it has never been challenged. Through 15 practices in the spring, through now we're 15, 16 practices into fall camp, Keon Sabb has never been challenged. He is unquestionably the starting safety alongside Malachi. And while Malachi is going to garner a lot of attention due to his sheer experience, there's hardly any defensive backs in college football in the nation that's played as many snaps as Malachi Moore has in big-time football games. But Keon, so Malachi may start with some preseason recognition. I think the postseason recognition is going to come for Keon. Real solid, sort of a ball hawk at safety. Colin Hitchler speaks very highly about him. So does Kane Womack. Again, he's a ball hawk. I think Keon Sabb could lead this league in interceptions, and it's one of my bold predictions for 2024. But I think Keon Sabb has a huge year, and I get why he's not on any list now, because he's only started 5 games in his whole career. He shouldn't be on any list right now, but he's a good bet to stand out in the scrimmage tomorrow, stand out all season long, and maybe end this year on some of these all-star lists.
Yeah, and I think the one important thing is you want to be on that list at the end of the year, not the beginning of the year. You know what I mean? That means you've actually done something to get there. Talking about the ESPN list, one of the things I noticed is they left off guys I probably would have on there, like Cam Coleman. Auburn didn't have
Mhm.
anybody in the top 100. He's going to have opportunity. He's a special kind of talent. He's a guy. So I think they went with guys that had to prove it, which would lead to Keon Saab. Ryan Williams is one, guys like that have to prove it. They're probably not as familiar with Jaden Roberts. He bounced around a little bit last year. So I think that's kind of that preliminary list, which is the safe list. But again, that's why we want to see at the end of the year where everybody stands. All right, we're going to get away a little bit from the football talk and get into our little Andrew thought of 3 little off topics he was all excited about. He wants to know our best game day cocktail, and he made sure he said, Tim, you can say water because I'm not a heavy drinker. That's look at Andrew showing he's drinking
It's a
Sunday at
Friday.
1. He's
It's
drunk
Friday.
Friday at 1 p.m. This is
Hey, it's
fantastic.
Friday.
I'm just
Through the
glad he don't
eyes.
have two. I'm just glad I don't have 2 young kids he's got to pick up in an hour and a half. So what could go wrong? So what is y'all tell me? I know you guys like to imbibe a little. Jimmy, what is your favorite drink and favorite drink at while you're watching football?
Yeah, I got a little story about that. But yeah, I would say, I mean, I'm just a typical, beer drinker, and primarily I drink beer on game day. But when I do something a little special, I do like the typical Alabama fan. I like Yellowhammers, either from Galette's or make my own, which aren't quite as good as Galette's, but they're close enough. So I'm kind of a Yellowhammer guy, which is just a very Alabama football, University of Alabama thing to do. What I'm excited about is my law school, one of my law school best buddies, he actually practices in New Orleans now, and I hardly ever get to see him. His kids started school at Alabama this fall, and he bought a condo just in an adjoining building from where I am. And he tells me that he makes a bourbon milk punch as good as they do at Dickie Brennan's in the French Quarter, and that he's going to do that on game days this fall. And I'm more excited about that than I am the Georgia game. I mean, I'm telling you, so maybe bourbon milk punch made by my buddy Brian might take over my favorite game day drink this fall.
I'm talking to say you're going to beat Brennan's in New Orleans. That's fighting words, right?
I know that's tall.
That's a tall test. I'm confident there. I mean, that family's legendary. We've one of the best places in there. That family's got all kind of places. Andrew, tell us what your drink is, and don't say, "Well, I'm going to tell you what it is." Zima. All I want to know is what. All I got to know is what flavors your Jolly Rancher. Let's just keep it real. Go ahead.
I'm probably not going to be like was it Chris Russo on ESPN, who says he has 2 drinks, then he takes a gummy, and then he has 2 more drinks, and then he takes a gummy later. That's not going to be me. You got to pace yourself throughout the entire day. So kind of start with a couple Miller Lights. That kind of gets you going. But what I like is a Buffalo Trace, little splash of ginger ale, not too much. Just a little splash, not much. So I like the Buffalo Trace and ginger ale drink. Been drinking a lot of transfusions this summer. Not on the golf course. I know that's the golf course drink, but it's been my back porch drink this summer, and at the pool drink this summer. So I might have to make me a few of those, but definitely during the fall, it's a little Buffalo Trace. You gotta have a little bourbon once the game kind of kicks off, and enjoy that. What do you think? Tell me what you're drinking when you're watching.
If it's
Alabama or the Braves.
If it's actually alcohol, the Braves make me want to drink. So they make me want to be a much heavy drinker. I'm just not a Corona. I like Corona with a lime. I'm a simple guy.
There you go.
The thing about it is I love Mountain Dew so much that beer takes place of Mountain Dew because you can only drink so much, right?
That's a good point.
I'm literally got to subtract from my favorite to get it done. I'm gonna get drunk with Andrew one day. He's gonna love me. I'm the nicest drunk ever.
Buffalo Trace and ginger ale sounds pretty good. That just got me a hankering. That will be done this weekend, right here. Thank you for that.
So now, when these stories are late on Saturday night and updates are late Sunday, you guys are gonna know why these 2 been slacking off. All right, what have y'all been? Tell us a little bit before we get out of here. What are y'all watching on TV? Jimmy, I'm most curious with you because really, I'm not sure we've discussed this a lot. What do you watch on TV? What's your go-to? What's your nights like?
I've had the great. It's half great and half saddest TV year ever because and my whole life I've never had HBO in my whole life until the past year.
How the
So,
hell is this possible?
I know. I watch a
How
lot
the
of sport.
hell?
I watch a lot of sports.
If
I
you're
watch a lot of
Joseph or
sports.
Blake's age, that's disappointing.
It is crazy.
But you're their age combined. How the hell do you never have HBO?
You had a lot to catch up on.
So in the past year and a half alone, I've watched every episode of Game of Thrones, which was unbelievable. Every episode of Curb, which is unbelievable. Every episode of The Wire. I've done all this in the past year and a half.
You finally lived.
Yeah, right now.
Have you done The Sopranos?
I'm saving that. I'm saving it. It's definitely on the list right now. The wife and I we're watching Hacks, which is season 2 of Hacks. It's good. It's solid. It's solid. I realize. So the past year and a half, I've watched incredible TV. It's just sad that I got to be in my 50s before I actually had HBO. I was watching a lot of sports.
When it comes to cinema, you're Andy Dufresne on a beach in Shawshank sanding your boat. You're free. You've crawled out of that tunnel and wiped every. You are free.
Like that. It is.
All right, Andrew. Here's what Andrew's watching. Whatever his wife says, and there's a lot of people dying, and it actually could happen in your neighborhood. That's what he watches. That's what he's like. I'm like, dude.
I like the sound of it.
That's like, dude.
We don't get a chance to watch a lot because we do have 2 very young kids who like to stay up until 9 or 9:30 every night. So by the time we get them down, it's like, all right, time to go to bed. But we do watch some shows, and Tim and I will text every now and then about what's what we should be watching. But Presumed Innocent on Apple Plus has been was outstanding. Really enjoyed that. We watched. I think we've only watched one movie in the last probably month. And that was Land of Bad on Netflix, which was
a good movie.
Pretty good. And then last night we started the documentary, the Lacey Peterson documentary on Netflix. So that was pretty good. I think my wife fell asleep during it, but I kept watching it because I was intrigued by it, even though I think I remember most of it when it all took place. But that's all.
Nobody likes.
We got to start. I guess we got to start watching Hard Knocks or something else to kind of get us ready for the.
I've been watching. Yeah, I've been watching Hard Knocks. Both episodes have been good.
Nobody likes movies about husbands killing their wives more than wives. I don't understand.
I don't show up.
Yeah, it's like the playbook for the guys to try to get away with it. I'm like, Andrew, like, hey, don't do that. Not the dumpster, It's insane, but that is a good story. We're watching Bad Monkey. Started that. I wanted to let it blend a little bit more. It's on Apple. It's got Vince Vaughn. It's got a really good cast. A lot of people you'll know. I kind of wanted to let it blend a little bit, though, and get a little further into the season, but I went ahead and bit the bullet. But the Hard Knocks are good. Every one of them's good. Last year, I loved the Dolphins in season. I hope they do that again with somebody.
They're doing the whole – I know the answer to that. They're doing the entire AFC – I want to say the entire AFC North. It is. It's the Browns, Bengals. They're doing the whole division. So Browns, Bengals, Ravens, and Steelers.
The worst division to go in. That's my gosh.
The in season, yeah.
Oh, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. You got a lot of Bammers in those episodes.
That is not the best football, though. That is not.
Tim watches a lot of TV and movies. I think Tim starting BOL instead of Rotten Tomatoes is the biggest upset of all time because Tim should have been the Rotten Tomatoes guy.
Hey,
what about Notre Dame's doing one, aren't they?
Notre Dame's doing a
Peacock.
I think that's on Peacock.
I would all like to see an Alabama version of that.
Notre Dame should do a Hard Knocks. If they lose Deuce Knight, Notre Dame should do a Hard Knocks on their recruiting. But because they are having a rough run right now. Yeah, that is a hot topic. That's been one to follow. I was glad Bama's not into that one.
Would it be the most shocking thing right now if Deuce Knight did stick with now, Deuce Knight, for those that don't know, is a quarterback that's in the state of Mississippi who's committed to Notre Dame, but Auburn and Ole Miss battling it out there. But would it be a shock if he stuck with Notre Dame?
A little bit to me, but he's already shocked a few people with his timeline because, they were thinking this was going last Friday. We're a week into it. I think it would probably be an upset, but I do think this has probably got to the financials. And, hey, if you need a quarterback, he's a pretty dang good one. to go and get. And, and Auburn's in that situation with Juju Lewis and so there's going to be some NIL factoring into this stuff. Although I saw our own Steve Wiltfong, who thinks that USC has a pretty good chance of holding on to Juju, which I saw and found interesting. But that thing's going to go back and forth, and it's going to go to the end. But yeah, the Giants. I'd like, if y'all get a chance, I'd watch that Giants Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
Mike Groves on there, same dude I knew when he was at Bama. He's very blunt, very honest. And that was when it was about the draft. So their draft process, which was cool because you got to see.
The funny thing about Grove was he got named the recruiter of the year for Rivals after his one season at Alabama. I forgot who all he brought in, but had a great recruiting class. And I think he was gone 2 days after he got named recruiter of the year to the NFL.
He was gone. That happened pretty quick. Kirby could have got it that year. And Kirby didn't really want recruiter of the year. He thought others should get credit because he did so much coaching, because they get that DC dude. They hit the bunker. They're in that bunker from August through December. They come out looking like the bear, the light shining on them. They're pale and all that stuff. But yeah, that was a very interesting grill. But that was good if you want to watch the back because they had a lot of wide receiver, quarterback talk in that. And then, of course, the Bears is going now with the preseason. So they chose some good ones. All right, guys, haircuts coming up. We're going to get off this thing. I appreciate it. As always, we appreciate you, everyone that is on BamaOnLine and the Roundtable. You that show up for the YouTube show. We're wrapping that up as the season gets here. Give us a like. I don't think they're going to like when they see your thumb. I think the thumb's discouraging.
It's a hitchhiker thumb, right?
What are you doing? What? I don't know what you did with that thing. You're like
better than Meg. It's better than Megan Fox's thumb. She has a thumb issue.
Those are big toe issues. I don't think that. Well, we appreciate everyone. You guys and girls, help us out. Give us a like and subscribe. We appreciate it. We'll be on the Roundtable. Plenty of good stuff coming up. Scrimmage tomorrow. A lot of good stuff. What are we? 2 weeks from kickoff? 15 days from kickoff?
2 weeks from Saturday.
It's almost here. We've made it. But thank you all for turning in, and we'll see you next week.